This session is closing coordinator, and it'll deal with the assistant's role in the closing. There are going to be some pre-closing tasks that you're going to have to be able to do. And let me explain what a closing is first. A closing is the final day where a deed is transferred for money and everything is resolved. I think it's important that you understand that title transfers when the deed is signed by the seller and delivered to the buyer at the closing table. Recording a deed is not required for title to transfer. However, it's just good business. Now, the assistant's role is going to be important because there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to do and understand. To begin with, there are going to be a number of things that you're going to have to make sure is done. Termite inspections had to be done, mold inspections, construction quality inspections, and if there's an attorney involved, they may want to review the contracts and the closing documents before. Also remember, new federal law requires that lenders deliver to a buyer at least 3 business days prior to closing the new TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure forms for their review. You cannot close a transaction unless this is done. Let's make sure that TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure is delivered in a timely manner. As far as the pre-closing checklist, have a record of your earnest money deposit and a copy of the receipt. Proofread the sale and purchase agreement to make sure that all the issues have been addressed. Make sure all contingencies have been met. Have the names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses of all the lenders and title companies. If an inspection is required, have the name and address and phone number of that inspector. If an appraisal is being done, make sure you have their information. Know when the closing is going to be and the time. Don't miss the closing. And once again, when you go to the closing, make sure you pick up a copy of the TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure form to take back for the broker's record. There's probably going to be a check with it as well. Make sure that you take that check and deliver it to the broker. That check cannot go to the agent. It must go to the broker. Now, as far as post-closing tasks, going to the closing is going to be important. Make sure that you're there if you're required to go there. I'll tell you what my recommendation is. I think the agent should be the one that goes to the closing. But if they ask the assistant to go, if they ask you to go ahead and go. Make sure all these things are done. Make sure the TILA-RESPA form is done and everything is in order. Once the closing is over with, the next thing that you're going to have to do is make sure all of the paperwork is wrapped up. Make sure that all the contracts and everything is put to bed. You're going to have a number of things to do. You're going to have to go back into MLS, make sure that all of the appropriate closing information is entered. And then the very last thing, you need to review the closing. I always tell people, look at the positives and the negatives. If you look at the negatives and say, what happened that we could do better, it'll make the next closing a lot better. And then the very last thing that you need to do, send out a nice thank you or a gift to the customer or client that you represented. Make them feel important, make them feel necessary, and thank them for the opportunity to serve. And that's all we have for the closing coordinator session.